You may remember a couple of days ago, the Git hosting company Codeberg, the code project named after an iceberg that's, I believe, out of Germany. They had announced, this was on February 12th, that they were under assault by right-wing forces. Right-wing forces were coming to destroy them, and they were going to wage war. They were going to stay strong against hate, and they were going to wage war against these right-wing forces, and they were encouraging other projects and people to stand up and wage war against the right. And this was interesting. This was an interesting take, considering there was no evidence that anything political even was happening to attack this Codeberg project company. The only thing that seems to have happened, because we've done some digging in this and we've asked a lot of people, including the Codeberg people themselves, is that someone, my guess is a teenager with a very juvenile sense of humor, logged into the Codeberg system and used it to send a whole lot of messages to people that were a bit on the naughty side. Now, not political. There were only 2 words sent to people, 2 words over and over again that were a bit naughty, right? A little bit inappropriate. Very, very juvenile. I do not recommend it. But there was nothing political about it, not even a little bit. So when Codeberg made this big political statement, it was weird. It was off-putting because there was no politics involved until Codeberg got the politics involved. Now, this story has continued to evolve over the last few days, and it's gone from amusing to even a bit weirder. PostmarketOS, a Linux smartphone distribution, they've been around for quite some years, and they do some excellent work in getting Linux and Linux-related stuff working on smartphone systems. They've come out and made the following statement. I'm just going to read it to you. Quote, "We stand in solidarity with our friends at Codeberg." This is in relation to Codeberg going to war against right-wing forces. "No project should have to deal with this kind of abuse, and we applaud their efforts to tackle it and protect their community." Got to protect against those right-wing forces, man. They're going to get you. Those right-wing forces that use 2 non-political naughty words, oh man, they're going to take you down. "If you share our desire for truly free software and infrastructure that doesn't harvest your data and have the means to, consider heading to donate.codeberg.org. Community funding is the best way to ensure that projects like Codeberg can continue to succeed and be independent." So this is interesting from 2 points of view. The first is that this is yet another open source project, a fairly prominent one. I mean, PostmarketOS has been around for some time, and they've done some quality work there. They have joined the war against right-wing forces, invisible right-wing forces that, as far as I can tell, don't even exist. Not 100% sure they're fighting against. I'm from what we've seen, and go watch the show from the 20th where Codeberg announced their fight against the far right. But I present all the evidence that we can possibly find. But the only thing we can see is that it looks like it's just some, I don't know, 12, 13-year-old, 14-year-old who thought they were being real edgy and posting 2 naughty words to a Git hosting system. So that's interesting that another open source project would jump on board with that. And then it's also fascinating that they're encouraging financial contributions to Codeberg, to the Git hosting company. And this doesn't really seem to be an isolated thing. All of the coverage I've seen of this has been very, very sympathetic towards Codeberg. This from The Verge. TheVerge.com says, "Open source code repository says far-right forces are behind massive spam attacks. Codeberg says abusive spam emails sent to its users are the result of a far-right hate campaign." And they go on to quote everything Codeberg says and present it as fact. LWN.net, Linux Weekly News, Linux Weekly News. Codeberg responds to hate attack, right? And does the same thing, props it all up. And this all has resulted in what appear to be a lot of people buying into it and getting new accounts over there at Codeberg. This random post over on Mastodon I took note of because a lot of people seem to be noting it. With the people signing up to be Codeberg members today, it seems the fascist beep attacking them are focusing their attack on the registration servers now. So you know exactly what they don't want you to do, and thus exactly what you need to do. When you can, join Codeberg as a member of the organization. Join me and hundreds of others in being part of it, supporting it financially, volunteering your skills, have a vote in how it's governed. Let's grow its regs. Show the beeping fascists that when they poke us, we come back bigger and stronger. And over the last several days, Codeberg has their site has legitimately been up and down, and they keep making statements. We're currently suffering from a network level denial of service attack, or maybe just a single actor. Anyway, our downlink is jammed. The statements they keep making call into question whether or not they are used to running servers. Like if you've got one guy who did something to your server, it's a very different thing than a distributed denial of service attack, and it looks different. But anyway, the interesting thing here is that they seem to be continuing to push forward the narrative that there are vast unseen right-wing forces attacking them. But the only thing that seems to have happened is that their servers go up and down a little bit, and there was a little bit of spam with two naughty words that were not political at all that were sent out. Now, I don't want to throw a bunch of conspiracy theory stuff on top of this, but this smells funny. I mean, it just smells funny. If Codeberg, if the folks behind it had come out with a whole bunch of messages, some of which were clearly from different sources and had very distinct political demands or something related to them, okay, I buy the story. But that didn't happen. In fact, they haven't provided anything that would even come close to suggesting anything political is happening here. And considering that they seem to be benefiting from this now, they seem to be financially benefiting from it. And if they've had these attacks, I think they obviously would be posting them, right? Because these are the sorts of people that screenshot and post it, as they should. I mean, if someone's attacking them, go ahead, screenshot it and post it. These people screenshot and post things all the time. They screenshot and post my statements constantly. But they're not doing that here, which leads me to think that they don't exist. I mean, I could be wrong. Show me if I'm wrong. But I'm going to go out on a limb here. If I had to guess what was the most likely scenario, Codeberg did this themselves. This was a publicity stunt to get attention for themselves. That would be my guess. I could be wrong on that. And the reason I could be wrong on that is because there's so little information. Maybe Codeberg is 100% on the level and right about what they're saying, but it sure doesn't smell like it. And now with other groups coming in and saying, yeah, we're PostmarketOS, we're on Team Codeberg, because naming a Git repository after an iceberg, I don't know, I feel like there's a metaphor in there for sinking ships. I'm just saying the PostmarketOS just crashed into the iceberg that is Codeberg, and this ain't gonna go well. But it seems interesting that they're going this route. I don't think it's going to play out well long term for them, because what this ends up doing, this fractures their user base. I've already heard from so many people who used Codeberg who are now not going to, who use the Codeberg's Git hosting, and they don't want to anymore because, this is crazy. This doesn't smell right. Forget the political stuff. Sure, the political stuff is gonna divide people, obviously, because Codeberg declared war, as PostmarketOS did. They declared war on anyone who wasn't like them politically. But it also just smells weird. And I don't know if you feel comfortable running your entire source code operations using a company or organization that does kind of weird stuff like this. It's going to be interesting to see as the week ahead comes, right? Because it's the weekend right now. What happens this next week, right? What happens with Codeberg? Do they start to downplay things? Do they ramp up the narrative? Do they maybe provide some more evidence of something? Maybe. I would then be interested in saying it. Do more open source organizations jump on this let's wage war bandwagon? Waging war, political war? Among, like, it's not even war against people that disagree. It's war on the basis of disagreeing politically. Why? We're making software here, dudes. Like, I don't understand why we can't just make software together regardless of our politics. Like, I like what PostmarketOS does, right? You know, they've had some technical issues over the years, and I have some criticism of the way they handle some things technically, but they still do some quality work there. And I like having Linux on smartphones and whatnot. That's great. I would, if I wanted to work with them, I would like to know that I could come there and work with them. I wouldn't care if they're leftist, rightist, uptist, downist, whatever, Maoist. I don't care. As long as we can work together on a cool piece of software, what does it matter? But what Postmarket and Codeberg and some of the others are now declaring is that it really matters. We won't work with you if you're the wrong politics. And we're seeing this so much happening with all sorts of things. I mean, just this week, we saw multiple people leave Linux kernel development. And it seems like they did so for political reasons. Right. And those were the same people who were calling for segregation of open source based on what your politics are. What the heck is going on? It's ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. It's asinine. But they're going for it. I'm going to be watching this one this week and seeing how things all shake out. Thank you to the Lunduke Journal subscribers. Go to lunduke.com, click on some things. It's fantastic. You like it a whole lot. You can support me there. You can get the podcast feeds and the YouTube and the X and the locals and the Rumbles and the forums, and it's all there. There's so many different ways that you can get and enjoy the Lunduke Journal. There's no wrong answer. Some are more popular than others, but whatever one makes you happy, rock and roll with it. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast.